hope you'll think about that. So when you hear the word resiliency, I know the energy guys know this, it's about making the systems from our transmission of energy straight through to the highways we're building, the bridges, resilient to the change that we're seeing happening. I'm sorry, I won't interrupt like that again, but I just hope you take a look at it. And tell me if we need more or less too. That's what
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I think with that, it's a great way to segue to our FEMA administrator, Deanne Criswell.
Thank you, Cedric. Mr. President, Governor, so far, in addition to some of the numbers that you mentioned, we have about 1,200 responders from the federal family on the ground, and that doesn't include those that are back at our National Response Coordination Center as well as our Regional Response Coordination Center, representing 22 different federal government agencies. We have right now 197 ambulances that have been actively engaged in trying to help with managing your support for the healthcare system. We also have 12 mobile communication units. Comms have been down, and so we've sent them into the parishes to help increase some of the communications until the cell towers can come back up. I'd also like to mention that we did just turn on the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program. The governor asked for that, I think yesterday, maybe the day before, which means now individuals that are displaced can stay in a hotel for a short term while we're looking at what their long-term lodging situations. And so if they haven't registered, if the people in their communities have not registered yet, they should register for assistance. Those that have registered, we will reach out to them automatically. And we've also turned on the Blue Roof program. We saw some of the blue roofs as we flew in today, and so if those have damages to their roofs, they can go to blueroof.us.
Let's make it clear, the governor's afraid of that guy, that's why he insisted.
So we'll have that available to help with some of those temporary roofing repairs. And then the last thing I'll just quickly mention is we know that responder lodging is a concern. I've heard that from you, Governor, as well as some of your staff. We are moving responder lodging into the areas. We have 200 beds that are already set up here in New Orleans, or in New Orleans at the airport. We have 300 more en route to Morgan City. And we have 300 en route to Belle Chase, and then we're also looking at bringing in a cruise ship to help support responders. And this isn't just for our federal responders, this will be for your first responders as well. And so we're actively pursuing additional lodging to help support those that really need to be able to stay close and support your communities. And this is just the beginning. We're going to be here until your recovery is
Not going away.
Mr. President, before I recognize our parish host, as we looked at those blue roofs, and I think this is important, especially for the country to know, that as our federal program gets up and running, we provided blue roofs, but a lot of those roofs are because the people of Louisiana decided to get on their roof, put up a tarp, mitigate their damage, and start that recovery process immediately. So the fact that you were able to get those tarps out to parishes so people could pick them up and start their recovery was important, and looking at the vast number, it was just incredible and gives me a sense of Louisiana pride to just show that when we get knocked down, we get right back up. And with that, I'll recognize.
Can I make one other point? One of the things that, again, about resilience, you're going to get the funding to build back those roofs, but not the same roof. A roof that is more resistant to higher winds and more resistant to hurricanes. So it's not just building back to what the roof was before, and build it back better. That's kind of what I mean. That's a classic example of what I'm talking about, resilience, of changing the nature of it.
So, Mr. President, with that, I'll recognize the parish president for St. John Parish, Jacqueline Hotel.
Thank you, Cedric. Mr. President, Governor, FEMA, and all of our partners, thank you for all of the hard work that was done in preparation for Hurricane Ida. And thank you for the response so far on the ground and for continuing to ramp up those efforts. Mr. President, from your track record, I know you will be a great partner in our recovery. Thank you for your support and your continued support for the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Levee Project. And thank you for calling out the insurance companies for distinguishing between mandatory and voluntary evacuations. Mr. President, our immediate needs are power, water, communications, and financial assistance for those who can't return home and are forced to stay somewhere else during the recovery. And thank you.
Thank you.
You know, part of some of the dilemmas when we do meetings like this is who we're going to recognize and who we're going to recognize next. And Senate, now. Of course.
Thank you. Let me start off by thanking the folks here in this neighborhood for letting me come in and see what's going on. Councilman, thank you. Thank you for everything. Folks, look, I'm grateful for the governor asking me to come on down to visit and to see what visit, and I want to thank him for his leadership as well. You know, we just came from an emergency operations center here in St. John's Parish, and we just walked this neighborhood. I'm going to finish walking it up that way as well. But the fact is that you know, there's a lot. We just to see just exactly what's happened on the ground, see what's going on in people's homes. A lot of people fear, for example, because they don't have cell connections, are unaware of what available help there is right now to get them. The FEMA director and I were just talking to them. We're going to make sure we have someone coming through here, going door to door, letting people know what's available to them right now, because they can't connect online. And with the governor and mayors and members of Congress, community leaders, all the folks that are here, we've been working together to deliver millions of meals and liters of water. And I know you all are frustrated about how long it takes to restore power. It's dangerous work. 25,000 linemen from around the country have come here to Louisiana to help. Crews from 32 different states are helping. And 2 of them lost their lives in the process of trying to get power back up. And we're working 24/7 with the energy companies who we met with the heads of today, and we're deploying even more federal resources, including hundreds of generators, and there's more to come to restore power as fast as we possibly can, faster than anything happened during Katrina. And we're also working on with the cell phone companies so you can call your loved ones, call for help regardless of where you are, make sure the people you know and you love you haven't been able to talk to lately, be able to know whether they're okay. We're moving quickly to keep gas flowing to the pumps, including I've gone into the strategic petroleum reserve. That's what's been set aside, the crude oil, providing flexibility for how many hours truckers are able to drive and transport gas and fuel, because there's a law in America. You can't drive for safety reasons beyond so many hours a day, but we need more movement of this fuel. And we're expanding the supply of gasoline that can be sold in the state of Louisiana. And there's much to be done. We're working around the clock with the governor and the elected officials here until we can meet every need you all have. In fact, reports suggest that some insurance companies may deny coverage for living assistance unless the homeowner was under a mandatory evacuation order. And so you paid your insurance premiums, you're supposed to get payments for additional living expenses in case of an emergency. Well, but the insurance companies are saying, no, we won't pay you what we owe. Well, we're putting as much pressure as we can. We know all the parishes that issued strong voluntary evacuation orders first, and many didn't have enough time to make that order mandatory as the storm moved so fast. And you know, even with voluntary evacuations order, folks felt safest leaving their homes in many cases. No one fled this killer storm because they were looking for a vacation or a road trip. So, folks, they left their home because they felt they had to flee the risk of death. There's nothing voluntary about that. And so I'm calling on private insurance companies, don't hide behind the fine print and a technicality. Pay what you owe your customers. Cover temporary housing costs and natural disasters. And help those in need. That's what we should all be doing now. And that's what we are doing. So far, we have provided, the governor's help as well, $100 million in critical assistance directly to people in Louisiana by putting $500 in their bank accounts once they've contacted us. That's what we're going to come back and let all you people know exactly how to do that. That'll happen. And secondly, as the governor's request, FEMA is helping with what fancy phrase, transitional sheltering assistance, meaning a place for you to be safely able to sleep at night and be secure. like covering your hotel bill. You're racked up because you couldn't stay at home during the hurricane or because your home is not livable now. We're making sure this kind of relief is equitable for those hardest hit. The resources they need have to get to them. And so no matter who you are, if you live in an affected area, please visit disasterassistance.gov once you're able to use your cell phone, or call 1-800-621-FEMA, FEMA. That's 1-800-621-3362. And folks, Hurricane Ida is another reminder that we need to be prepared for the next hurricane. And superstorms are going to come, and they're going to come more frequently and more ferociously. I've been working closely with the governor and our colleagues in Congress in both parties on my Build Back Better plan that will modernize our roads, our bridges, our water systems, sewers and drainage systems, and power grids and transmission lines to make sure they're more resilient. I walk through the backyards here. So many telephone lines are down. So many telephone poles are down. So many of the way in which we transmit energy is lost because of old wooden telephone poles. We know for a fact if they're underground, they're secure. Cost more money. We got to not just build back to what it was, put the same old poles up. We got to build back better. We got to build back more resiliently. And we got to make sure we do the same thing across the board. Think about how that $760 million West Shore project here in southern Louisiana will build miles of new levees, pumping stations, and drainage structures to provide protection for 60,000 folks in the area. It will change their lives in future storms. I told the governor that he has my full support, and I mean it sincerely, he has my full support to get this project done. And folks, I know you're hurting. I know you're hurting. I know the folks in Lake Charles, who I visited earlier this year, are still hurting from Hurricane Laura. I want you to know we're going to be here for you. And with regard to Lake Charles, I've put in a request in the budget to provide for help for recovery for Lake Charles as a consequence of Laura and Delta, two storms that they still haven't gotten the needs that they have. This isn't about being a Democrat or a Republican. We're Americans, and we'll get through this together. We just got to remember, we not only have to build back, we have to build back better than it was before. Better than it was before, so when another superstorm comes, it's not the damage done. So thank you all very much. I'm going to see the rest of the folks in the neighborhood here. But every time I'd walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandmother would yell, "No, Joey, spread it." Let's spread the faith, okay? Let's get this done together. Thank you. Thank you. All right, want to walk up here?
This way, sir. This way.